The blade of eternity had stood in the stone for 3,000 years. Commander Jathria of the Valorian Empire had seen many species attempt to claim it, the Corinthians with their forearms and hydraulic muscle fibers, the Gargolith whose gravity-defying strength could crush starship hulls, the psionic collective who'd tried to move it with pure mental force. All had failed. All had walked away humbled, their pride shattered against the immovable truth embedded in that ancient stone. So when the human shuffled forward, Jathria couldn't help but laugh. "You?" Her crystalline voice echoed through the chamber of trials, sharp with amusement. Her serpentine form coiled elegantly as she regarded the creature before her. Small, fragile, no exoskeleton, no natural weapons, not even proper scales. "Human, your species has been part of the Galactic Council for barely 2 cycles. Do you understand what has tried and failed before you?" Marcus Chen stood 5'9" in his worn boots. His Expeditionary Corps uniform had seen better days, stained with the red dust of 3 different worlds. He scratched his stubbled jaw and shrugged. "Yeah, I read the plaque outside." "Then you comprehend the futility." "Says here," Marcus continued, squinting at the ancient text carved into the stone, "that the sword can only be claimed by one who embodies the spirit of their people." He looked up at her, his brown eyes utterly calm. "That about right?" Jathria's laughter rippled through her form, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with condescension. "Indeed. And what spirit does humanity possess that could possibly compare to the warrior races who have attempted this trial? You are barely capable of surviving your own gravity well without assistance." "We got off Earth just fine," Marcus said mildly, "with primitive chemical rockets that would make a Corinthian child laugh." She gestured with one of her 4-taloned hands toward the sword. Its blade caught the eternal light of the chamber, shimmering with power that predated most galactic civilizations. That weapon was forged by the ancients themselves. It has been touched by beings who could reshape reality with thought. What could a human possibly? Marcus had already walked past her. The other observers in the chamber, diplomats, scientists, historians, murmured amongst themselves. A Heptari ambassador's tentacles twitched with what might have been second-hand embarrassment. This would be over in moments. Another failure to add to the list. Marcus reached the stone and placed both hands on the sword's worn leather grip. "Human, I must warn you," Jathria called out, her amusement fading to something almost like pity. "Those who attempt and fail suffer significant neural feedback. Your primitive nervous system might not—" Marcus pulled. Nothing happened. "As I suspected," Jathria began, her tone dripping with vindication. Marcus planted his feet wider. His jaw set, then he pulled again, harder this time, muscles straining against fabric. The tendons in his neck stood out like cables. His face reddened with effort. "This is unseemly," Jathria said. "Accept your limitations with grace, at least." But Marcus didn't stop. He adjusted his grip, twisted slightly, and pulled with everything he had. His hands shook. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the chamber's climate control. "Your stubbornness will only—" The stone cracked. It was a small sound at first, like ice beginning to break on a frozen lake. Then it grew. Fracture lines spiderwebbed across the ancient monolith, glowing with the same ethereal light as the sword itself. Jathria's mocking expression froze. Marcus grunted, his boots scraping against the polished floor as he braced himself. The sword moved. Just a fraction of an inch, but it moved. The light in the chamber intensified, and suddenly every species present understood something fundamental. This wasn't about strength. It was about not knowing when to quit. The sword slid free another inch. Then another. Marcus's arms trembled, his breath coming in harsh gasps, but his grip never faltered. The chamber filled with a sound like singing crystal, like the universe itself taking notice. "Impossible," Jathria whispered. With a final, desperate heave, Marcus tore the blade of eternity from its stone prison. The explosion of light threw everyone back. Ancient runes blazed to life along the sword's length, shifting through languages dead before the first stars formed. The weapon hummed in Marcus's hands, resonating with something deep in his genetic memory. The echo of every human who'd ever refused to surrender, who'd climbed mountains because they were there, who'd looked at the stars and decided to reach them despite every rational reason not to. Marcus stood there, breathing hard, holding a weapon of unimaginable power. He looked at it with the same expression he might give a particularly stubborn piece of equipment that had finally started working. "Huh," he said. Jathria couldn't speak. Her entire worldview had just shattered like that ancient stone. She'd witnessed the Corinthians attempt this trial with their legendary strength. She'd seen the psionic collective marshal the mental force of 1,000 minds. All had possessed greater power than this small, fragile creature. But none of them had possessed humanity's most dangerous trait, the absolute refusal to accept that something couldn't be done. Marcus turned to face her, the blade of eternity held loosely in his grip like it weighed nothing. The sword had chosen, not the strongest, not the most evolved, but the most stubborn. "So," Marcus said, hefting the legendary weapon over his shoulder with casual irreverence that made 3 historians faint, "where do I sign for this thing?" Jathria's crystalline voice failed her completely. For the first time in her 3 centuries of life, the proud Valorian commander could only stare. In the depths of her enhanced mind, a new understanding crystallized, one that would spread through the Galactic Council in the cycles to come. The humans weren't the strongest species. They weren't the smartest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced. They were simply the ones who didn't know how to give up. And perhaps, Jathria thought as she watched Marcus accidentally trigger the sword's molecular disintegration field and then calmly figure out how to turn it off. That was the most terrifying thing in the galaxy.